All you have to do is figure out a way to earn $2,739.75 a day, 365 days a year. That's $2,739.75 a day, 365 days a year. Or if you don't like the idea of working on weekends, figure out a way to earn $19,230.76 a week. Now, there's no allowance made there for vacations or holidays, but maybe earning more than $19,000 a week would make you forget about vacations and holidays. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure that's a problem that bothers a lot of people. How to earn $1 million a year, and so there's your answer. Make $20,000 a week, and you can have a 2-week vacation. Think of that. Now, how do you go about earning $20,000 a week? Well, there are many ways. But since $1 million a year would make you rich, you should remember that there are really only 4 main ways of getting rich. To do it, you must have people working for you, or money working for you, or ideas working for you, or work for yourself. Now, I'll run through that quickly again in case you missed it. There are 4 ways to get rich. 1, have money working for you. 2, have people working for you. 3, have ideas working for you. 4, work for yourself. Any one of these basic 4 reasons will work, or any combination. Now let's get back to the $20,000 a week. If you produced a product on which you could earn a $10 profit, and if you had dealers for this product in 200 cities, and if each dealer could sell 2 of these products a day, you'd come up with $1 million of profit. You see how it works? Or if you produced a product on which you could earn $1 of profit, you'd have to sell 20,000 of them a week. Now, right offhand, that might sound unreasonable, but it really isn't. It isn't easy, but it isn't impossible either. All you need is 20,000 regular customers subscribing to a good product or service for which you could earn $1 per week profit per customer. Of course, if you're not greedy and would be content to earn $500,000 a year, you can cut those figures in half. So don't ever say you don't know how to make $1 million a year, because I went to quite a bit of trouble to figure the whole thing out and pass it along to you. $20,000 a week, while certainly not all the money in the world, is a tidy income, and with a little care and good judgment, could easily take care of most ordinary expenses. As an exercise in creative thinking, why not spend some time thinking of ways in which you could honestly earn $1 million a year? If you only earned half that, it would be worthwhile. Make no little plans. There's nothing in little plans to stir men's blood. Make big plans. Once a big idea is recorded, it can never die. How big are your plans? If you've begun to find your daily life something of a bore, rather humdrum or uninteresting, it could be because your plans are too small. You know, more people would make bigger plans if they knew they could be accomplished. The men who have stood out in history have been those with big plans that caught the fancy and imagination of others. A family with a big plan toward which they're working is a happy, busy, and interesting family. They suffer much less boredom and have no time for bickering or looking for convenient means of escape. You might, just for fun, stop a minute and reevaluate your plans. What are they? What is it that you're working toward? Is it big enough for you? Does it fill you with excitement when you think about it? And does it fill your days with energy and accomplishment? Maybe your plans are too small. Maybe you're trying to play it safe with your one chance at life here on Earth. All too often there's a wide gap between what a person started out to accomplish and what he's actually accomplished. Usually there are very good reasons for your wanting to accomplish a particular thing. It's usually your particular talents and abilities trying to get you on the course that's right for you. Now, you're unlike any person who ever appeared on Earth. But are you acting like other people? There's no good reason for it. What is it that you want to do or have more than anything else? If you can answer that question, you can discover the direction you should very probably take. People accomplish what they set out to accomplish, but they often don't realize the extent of their own greatness and make their plans accordingly. They take their cue from those around them, assuming that what others do is right for them also. Maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. Of one thing you can be sure: if the plan toward which you're working does not keep you interested and fill you with excitement at the prospect of its accomplishment, your plan is probably too small. What is it that you really want to do? Why don't you do it? If it's good and hurts no one, go after it. You might be amazed at what you can do. People usually are when they discover that the goals that come naturally to them do so for very good reasons. No one will really desire with all his heart something that is beyond his accomplishment. Would you call yourself a creative person? Today I'd like to talk with you about the characteristics of creative people. A study of leaders shows certain traits are always apparent in the creative person, and here's a list of them. Perhaps no person has them all, but the Edisons, Ketterings, the Bells, the Einsteins, and Shakespeares, and the modern creative persons certainly have many of the following characteristics. Number 1, drive, the desire to work hard and long. 2, courage, tenacity of purpose. 3, goals. The creative person knows what he wants and goes after his goals with vigor. 4, knowledge. He has an insatiable thirst for knowledge. He knows his subject, he does his homework. He constantly bones up on it. He vigorously seeks total knowledge in his subject area. Number 5, good health. He keeps physically fit. Number 6, optimism. The creative person is usually optimistic and positive. He believes in people. He tries hard to be part of the solution to a problem and not part of the problem. Number 7, enthusiasm. He's an enthusiastic person. He has a zest for life. He lives fully. 8, honesty. He's frank, forthright, honorable. He has integrity, and he is, above all, intellectually honest. 9, judgment. He has judgment. He searches for facts, evaluates them, tries to always understand first, then he judges. 10, he's a chance taker. He doesn't fear failure. He knows failure is often a stepping stone to success. 11, enterprising. He courageously takes on jobs others don't want or jobs others have failed to accomplish. He's daring and bold. He doesn't try the impossible or ridiculous, but he's not afraid to try the unknown. He's an opportunity seeker. 12, he's outgoing. He makes friends easily. He encourages people and ideas to grow in his presence. 13, he's dynamic, energetic, on the move. 14, he's persuasive. He knows how to sell. 15, he's articulate. He has verbal skill and competence. He uses active verbs and simple words. He's communicative. 16, he's patient with others, impatient with himself. 17, he's a perfectionist, always striving for excellence. He will not tolerate mediocrity, particularly in himself. 18, he's sensitive. His gateways to the mind are always open. He's highly tuned to life around him. 19, he's flexible. He's pliable and resilient, not rigid in his thinking. 20, he has a sense of humor. He laughs easily and enjoys a good story. 21, he's curious and inquisitive. He's forever asking why. 23, he's versatile. He does many things well. 24, he's individualistic, non-conforming, aggressive, fearless. And 25, he's creative. He knows how to imagine, how to put combinations together and think in new terms. He thinks first and then judges his thoughts afterwards. That's the creative person. Well, how did you score as a creative person? Well, that's pretty good. 25 out of 25. That makes you about 1 in a million. You'll go far. An interesting true story appeared in the magazine The American Salesman, and I'd like to pass it along to you. It'll show you the value of one good idea and what it can be worth. One day, an efficiency expert named Ivy Lee was interviewing Charles Schwab, president of Bethlehem Steel Company. Lee outlined his organization's service to Schwab and ended by saying, "With our service, you'll know how to manage better." To which Schwab replied, "I'm not managing as well now as I know how to. What we need is not more knowing, but more doing. Not knowledge, but action. If you can give us something to pep us up to do the things we already know we ought to do, I'll gladly listen to you and pay you anything within reason you ask." "Fine," answered Lee. "I can give you something in 20 minutes that'll step up your action and doing at least 50%. Schwab was interested, so Lee handed Schwab a blank note sheet from his pocket and said, "Write on this paper the 6 most important tasks you have to do tomorrow." Now that took about 3 minutes. "Now number them in order of their importance," he said. That took about 5 minutes. Then Lee said, "Now put this paper in your pocket, and the first thing tomorrow morning, look at item 1 and start working on it until it's finished. Then tackle number 2 in the same way, then item 3, and so on. Do this until quitting time. Don't be concerned if you've only finished 1 or 2. You'll be working on the most important ones. The others can wait. If you can't finish them all by this method, you couldn't have with any other method either. And without some system, you'd probably not even have decided which was the most important. Do this every working day. After you've convinced yourself of the value of this system, have your men try it. Try it as long as you wish. And then send me a check for what you think it was worth." The whole interview between Lee and Schwab lasted about 20 or 30 minutes. In a few weeks, Schwab sent Lee a check for $25,000 with a letter saying the lesson was the most profitable from a money standpoint that he had ever learned. In 5 years, using this plan, it was largely responsible, they claim, for turning the, at that time, unknown Bethlehem Steel Company into the biggest independent steel producer in the world, and it helped to make Charlie Schwab $100 million and the best-known steel man in the world. Well, that's the story of the man who made $25,000 in about 30 minutes with a single great idea. And that was in the days when $25,000 was a fortune and you could keep all of it. Of course, the reason I've told you the story is twofold. One, since it worked so well for Charles Schwab, you might want to try the same thing yourself. You'll be pleasantly surprised at the number of things you will accomplish, and in far less time, simply by tackling them one at a time and in the order of their importance. And two, it goes a long way to show the value of an idea for improving a given situation. Ideas are, always have been, always will be, the most valuable things on earth. As Phelps put it, a great idea is usually original to more than one discoverer. Great ideas come when the world needs them. They surround the world's ignorance and press for admission.